I grew up in Japan and my mother is Japanese. And for decades, I would not go to Japanese restaurants. And everyone's like, "Oh, you want to go to a Japanese restaurant?" And I was like, "No, because I know what it tastes like, and I have a specific memory of it in my head to be subjected to some restaurant where they don't know what they're doing and to have to eat it. It will distress me. And I know it's obnoxious, but I would not go to a Japanese restaurant. I finally stopped being like that. I think it was very much tied, maybe I guess, my identity and my memories. And I had a specific idea of what it should taste like. And there was no room for other interpretations.
In Puerto Rico, your kids go everywhere. If there's a wedding, if there's a funeral, I mean, kids are involved, right? So she had people coming in with kids and they're like, these are too big, like the normal Whoppers. And so she developed a smaller version to be able to sell and made so much more money that it got adopted in the rest of the country. Hello, and welcome to KTVG Studio. Today, we have a topic that I think Katie and I might have touched on for ourselves before, but I don't think we've ever really talked in depth with you guys about it. And that is how we're looking specifically at food. So our term is more food that ties you to your ethnicity or where you come from is what we're looking at. And I did a really quick kind of search on what do the studies say about it? And the most basic line that we're starting with is that ethnic foods ground us by linking memory, heritage, and identity. And they connect us by creating shared experiences that build belonging across families and communities. So I think that's something that, I don't know, seems like one of those, yeah, that makes sense. It's fairly obvious.
Yes.
But our last session, we talked about third culture kids. And I think that there's an aspect for them of, the food from where they are growing up or living for periods of time and where maybe their family comes from could be different, but they can each have ways that they ground them or connect them. So how about you, Katie? Were you looking at it in that similar way or did you have a different take on it?
I looked at it the same way. So I found a really good, really interesting article that kind of breaks it all down, and it's called Food and Memory. So I was going to walk through that a little bit. And then I decided to look at websites, organizations that work to preserve specifically indigenous foods, but also cultural foods. So there's a few that I was going to introduce because they're kind of interesting. There's a whole field of study on food. Because it's when I was doing the research, it's such a multifaceted and really complex arena of study because it's like you can look at food as obviously memory and heritage and identity, but it's also environmental, food insecurity, ecosystems, biosecurity, and social aspects. It touches everything. It's an amazing field. I didn't realize it was it makes sense, but it's such a rich and so many studies about it. My goodness. So yes,
well, you figure it's
mine.
part of sustaining our lives.
Yes,
food
very important.
In general. But I do think it's a point that you've made several times, Katie, like when we're talking about holidays, that food is one thing that raises the level of a holiday. If it's associated with sharing food with others, in particular, very often with your family, it kind of raises that holiday up in its importance. Even if people aren't, I don't know, either as into various types of food, like they're like, look, I eat, so I live, but it's not my passion kind
Mm-hmm.
of thing. I
Mm-hmm.
think that sometimes maybe the connection to others
Mm-hmm.
through food brings it out. The other thing is I'm interested to hear more about the study you were talking about because in memory studies, smells are
Mm-hmm.
often one of the strongest things that can tie you to a memory. And I can see
Yes.
food very much being part of that aspect.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a sensory experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I did a training that Katie did um, a couple weeks ago with this
Mm-hmm.
group called Shoulder. And we are hoping to interview one of the founders, if not a few of the people from this organization. But one of the things that they talk about is at the end of, you're doing like listening sessions, and at the end of it, asking someone if there's a way they can anchor either what the epiphany they've had or what they're looking to do to something, whether that's a sticky note on their mirror or something they say to themselves each morning or a list that they've created or a visual, like a visualization that they have of how things are going to come out. But um, I'm thinking that food might be a harder one when you're coming out of that, but just the whole
Mm,
anchoring of memory.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have a place that you want to start or?
Well, I mean, I could start if you'd like me to start with my little article.
Sure.
It's
Have you start with your article?
it's quite multifaceted, but very interesting. It's from 2006, and it's one author. It's written by John Holtzman at Western Michigan University. I guess he's written quite a bit about food and memory. So this is like a nice kind of overview-ish thing about food and memory. So I liked it. I like the way he put it together. I like the way it's organized. So he's tying food first as a sensuous memory, just like you said, and saying that it's the engine for the construction of intense bodily memories.
Okay.
And I like that. I thought it was very, ooh. So
It almost
examples,
sounds like it's coming from an erotic novel.
yeah, exactly. Maybe that's why I liked it.
Could
Um,
be.
so one
Um,
classic example, obviously, you throw in there is Proust's book with the Madeleines. And he bites into it and it's like flooded with memory, blah, blah,
I'm
blah.
not familiar with this book.
Oh,
I mean,
you
I'm
didn't
familiar
read
with
it in
Madeleine's.
for, oh, yes. There's, Proust wrote this book. I forget what it's called. It's like super thick. You have to read it in every French literature class. I forget the title of it. It's like Remembrance or something. Um,
I didn't.
and there's
If I
it's a
had it, we must have read a part of it because I really don't remember it in my French
it's a
literature class.
very everyone refers to Proust's, and it's kind of a lots of words to describe. It's like a very long book.
Everything. Got
Um,
it.
so it's the author is biting into a Madeleine, and then it evokes all these memories of his childhood. Um, and it's like a classic French literature thing. Um,
Got
so
it.
that is an intense bodily emotion, right? From eating a
Yes.
food item. Well, okay. Um, um, Another thing that he brings into it, obviously, is ethnic identity. But what I liked about what he was writing was it's not always what you think. It's not always, oh, Slovakian people for ethnic identity eat Slovakian food. It's so much more complicated and so much more dynamic because he gives an example of this article that was written, I guess, in the 1990s, and it was about American Jewish people in the Lower East Side in the early 1900s, immigrants, I guess, and how they loved Chinese food. They went to Chinese restaurants more than Jewish restaurants. And it's like this, I'm not Jewish and I have absolutely no idea about this, but evidently it's a thing. It's known that Jewish New
Hmm.
Yorkers love Chinese food. And I was really intrigued by this. It was an article that was written by Gay Tuckman and Harry Levine, 92. And they gave some reasons for it because you're kind of like, what? So one reason was at the time, early 1900s, Chinese restaurants didn't follow the Christian calendar, so they would be open on Sundays. And so the Jewish people think these they could go to a restaurant on a Sunday. Another thing is it's not kosher food, but it's kind of they said it was a soft violation of kosher food because I guess because Chinese don't mix dairy and meat. There's almost no dairy anyway. So that's okay. But when they do put pork or whatever in, it's minced so finely in that what they were eating that you couldn't even really see it. So it was okay. So that they thought it's an okay place to go eat. Another thing was there were familiar flavors, which I thought was interesting, but whatever. I didn't delve into that so much. Um, and obviously they're all on the Lower East Side, so they were all in proximity to each other. So
Well,
evidently there was this
even
huge love of Chinese food.
but even in like modern 21st century, like when I moved to New York City, I know numerous Jewish New Yorkers no longer living on the Lower East Side. I lived in Forest Hills, which was and I think still is a bit of an enclave for at the time late nine late 20th century. It was people coming from Eastern Europe and the former Soviet Union, um, so including places like Russia, who kind of settled in and around. And I remember a lot of the Jewish folks that I worked with talking about how it was a tradition on Christmas Day, because they don't celebrate Christmas, but it's a holiday in the US. They would go to Chinese restaurants. So, not so much
See,
talking generally about Chinese food, but it was a tradition in their family. They would go to a Chinese restaurant and then the movies.
I
Like,
think it's a thing. I think it's a
yeah,
thing. And I don't know because I'm not Jewish, but it it's in America, in New York specifically, it's rooted in this, it's food, it's a memory, it's a heritage, but it's something you don't think, and it was invented in that period at a specific time because of the confluence of factors. And
it's also the Chinese food that gets served in the United States. A lot of people who would come from China wouldn't recognize some of it
yes, yes,
just because of the way it has been adapted, either because of what's available or because of the palettes of the additional people they're trying to bring in.
yes. So evidently it's a big thing. So Jewish people like Chinese food, and it's documented in these articles, and it is a form of, it's a memory, it's a heritage, it's an identity, maybe specific to New York Jews. But and it's completely, I thought it was really weird. I mean, because I've never heard of it. But when I read about it, it kind of made sense. So that was
If you had
quite
lived in New
funny.
York City, you would have heard about it. Not just
Yeah.
visited, but
Oh,
lived
yes,
there. You
I'm
would have
sure.
heard about it.
But many people do not. So I
Yes,
thought it
yes, I
was a
know.
really interesting story. Not something you'd think. Um, um, then it was the article goes on to talk about diaspora memory. So, eating foods from your homeland. Food as national identity, nationalism, be proud, like, Polish people proudly eating pierogies, which I love, by the way. Um,
I do
food
too. You
and
know, when did
food,
you first have pierogies?
oh, years ago. I
For
don't know.
me, it was at Smith, and I
Oh,
fell in
maybe
love
it
with
was
them.
Smith.
But
Yeah, maybe
Smith was
that's
the
where it
first time
was.
I had ever had them. I didn't know anything about them, and I was in love. And I'm
Maybe
not a
that's where I
huge,
had them, but I don't
like,
remember.
I'm not a huge pasta with potato person, like gnocchi. It's fine. I don't have anything like, oh, I don't like it. But pierogies was probably my first experience of like, oh, I can understand people's love of a bit of pasta with with
It's a
potato.
dumpling.
It is a dumpling. Yeah.
Yes, which I
But
love dumplings.
previous to that, most of the various forms of dumplings I had had were
Mm.
meat or
Mm-hmm.
meat and vegetables, not, I mean, I know potato is often classified as a vegetable, but not another starch necessarily.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
I mean, there
yes.
might be a little bit of corn in it or a little bit of carrot, but for the most part, it was normally like other types of veggies mixed in with meat. So I
Did
hadn't
you have
had one.
corn in your dumpling?
I did. Again, I was in the Pacific Northwest, so I don't know exactly why there would be corn in a dumpling, but or I could
Corn.
be misremembering, but I feel like there was corn in the dumplings.
Mm. Oh,
Not all of them, just some of them.
no, it's unusual.
Hmm. I can see that.
Hmm. Um, Food and gender, another interesting little area of study there. Gendered foods and gendered processes. Um,
There's gendered
Giving
foods?
some cultures, there's certain foods
Oh,
for women and
okay.
certain for men, or the way they eat it.
Well, I
Some
definitely think
places,
about
some cultures are
cultures.
separated, right? When you
That's,
eat.
yeah. But I also think about like certain foods being good, for example, for women who are menstruating or about to menstruate and stuff. I
Mm.
guess, I thought of that
Yeah.
before. I just never
Oh, yeah.
thought of it in the terms of gender before,
I think you
though
can
I
apply
understand what it
gender
is.
in
No,
kind of
no.
interesting ways. Yeah. Um, Other than that, I don't really have specific examples of that.
Okay.
Um, Another aspect he looked at was he called it epical transformations. So one example was so food, a McDonald's comes into your country or whatever neighborhood. Um, and it's that food is an example of you can be taken as imperialism, cultural decay, or modernity. So, positive, negative. Um,
I think
that was kind of interesting.
coming from Puerto Rico, where the US colonial hegemony has had a huge impact, there are a few things that come to mind for me about it. One is things such as, if I'm remembering correctly, like the Whopper Jr. was something that
Hmm.
ended up getting developed in Puerto Rico because um,
Oh.
they're franchises. And this woman had one, and she was having people come in who wanted, in Puerto Rico, your kids go everywhere. If there's a wedding, if there's a funeral, I mean,
Mm.
kids are involved, right? So she had people coming in with kids, and they're like, these are too big, like the normal Whoppers. And
Mm,
so she
yes.
developed a smaller version to be able to sell and make and made so much more
Oh.
money because she was selling a smaller version for the kids that it got adopted in the rest of the country. And it's not the only case like that, because things like Puerto Ricans on the island, if they go to a place like, for example, Church's Chicken, and then they try to go to one on the mainland, they're like, it's not the same. It's very like the foods sold or the sauces, they're not the same. Like the franchises have adjusted things and developed things specific to the island. Like
Hmm.
you can
Yeah.
actually go to McDonald's and have decent coffee, mostly
Mm.
because a lot of Puerto Ricans just won't drink bad coffee on the island,
Yeah.
and they can find it cheaper. But
Yeah.
there is a lot of, like, you name the fast food, it tends to exist on the island, but islanders often complain when they come to the mainland that it does not taste the same. They do not have the same things. Like you can't order a Mallorca at Starbucks in New York City, though you can get one on the island, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. Um,
Sorry, I
about
interrupted. Long
that,
interruption.
but about on that vein, but about McDonald's specifically. So
Uh-huh.
when I lived in Seoul, Korea in the 80s, mid 80s, before the Olympics, because we left that summer before right before the Olympics start in 88. So we never had a McDonald's.
Never
We
had a
had a
what?
McDonald's there,
Oh, okay.
McDonald's. We had a Wendy's and a KFC. Everyone else was there, but not a McDonald's. And it was always this topic of conversation. So there was a rumor that there was a McDonald's that was opening up, and there was so much excitement. Oh my God. And it was like a symbol of we're coming into the 20th century. I mean,
Gotcha.
there's other fast food, like we're totally happy with Wendy's, but McDonald's it was symbolized something. And oh my God, it opened on the southern side. I don't know why. And the lines were just so long because people were so excited. And it really was like, oh, we've made it, which is funny. I think it's a funny way to look at fast food. Because I think nowadays it would be more like, oh my God, it's like another multinational, like taking over and destroying our culture and our heritage. But back back in the 80s, I think it happened in Moscow as well, wasn't it? There was like a McDonald's open and everyone was lining up for it, and um, it was seen as a positive, oh, we're joining the rest of the world kind of thing. So
Which is
funny.
wild because I remember on our it's another McDonald's story. Um,
Mm,
when we went on our trip from Paris to Geneva and we had to we ended up in this small town.
mm,
And I just remember there were people who there was a McDonald's in France in this old building. And
mm.
I just remember being like, oh my God, do they have to be everywhere? Like this was several years after the lines that you're describing. It was what,
Well, this is
92?
France, so it's a different. So
And then France has a
I think they've
different,
been around for a while there.
they had, but I was like, people we were with were so excited to see the McDonald's, they went and ate there. And I was like, no, I gotta find something else. Like I can't succumb to the McDonald's. And I've eaten McDonald's in other countries when I'm traveling. Like, but at that time I was just like, I have to find something else. But I remember being gobsmacked that it was in this old building. Like it did have like a little arches thing kind of hanging outside it, but
Mm-hmm.
um it was in this old building that had been retrofitted to be a McDonald's.
Oh
Um
yeah, yeah.
and I realized I never went inside it. I just, you could see through the windows. But my first memory of McDonald's is actually in Germany. And I don't know, I always felt like, and it could just be the way my mom tended to talk. She's like, we don't have McDonald's money. There's no money for McDonald's. But I do remember my dad taking us to McDonald's, and this was earlier 80s, like late 70s, and it was like this huge memory because we
Mm.
didn't go there. Though other people, other kids even had their birthday parties there. We did
Yeah,
not go to McDonald's. We
yeah,
were not McDonald's money family, like mom's like, we got food at home. I'll cook something, like, so, but I remember going and like the smell of the fries and like the Happy Meal kind
yeah,
of concept. It was otherworldly kind of
yeah.
thing. Like, and it doesn't smell exactly the same anymore. Like I think they changed the formula.
Mm.
I think they worked really
Oh, I
hard
don't
to try
know.
and make it smell the same. McDonald's
Mm.
fries used to be fried in, I believe beef fat, beef tallow.
Oh,
And
okay.
then you had like the rise of vegetarianism and,
Mm.
sustainability issues and stuff. And so I believe they switched it. Now, I don't have the studies on this or the news articles. I just remember this from when it was happening and people really complaining, it doesn't smell the same. It doesn't taste the same. And I have to say, it
Oh,
doesn't smell the
really?
same. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I was only allowed McDonald's when I was little, like for a special occasion. Tokyo, we would get it as like a treat, but um, not super often. But oh, I just loved it. Just-
I my we had a Burger King on base when I first
oh
moved
yeah,
to
Burger
Washington
King.
State.
Yeah.
So that was different. And I was never a huge Burger King person, though I
No,
like
I'm
their
not a Burger
onion
King.
rings and I
Mm.
like their version of chicken tenders
Oh,
more
okay.
than I ever liked McDonald's chicken nuggets. Um,
Those
but
are nasty, McDonald's chicken nuggets. It's not.
it,
It's not nice. I do not. I think it's like fake. I don't know what it is. It doesn't. I don't know. It's weird.
I don't know. My younger nephew really likes them. Um,
Oh.
so I've had a few. I remember when they first started not liking them. I
Mm.
don't know if they've changed stuff, but now they're just sort of okay. I don't think anything of them one way
I
or the
feel
other.
like the texture is weird. Like I feel like they are not real chicken. It may be, but the way that it's compressed makes my mouth feel like it's not a real chicken.
It's part of the reason I used to like Burger King's chicken tenders. But when
Because
I
it was
first
real.
started, yeah, and you could tell
Yeah.
it was real.
Yeah.
When I first started working, I worked across from a McDonald's and an Arby's. I feel like there was another fast food place, but I'm
Oh.
not sure. Um, and the best teller that and the bank at the time that I started working had worked at McDonald's. And the woman who was hiring was like, look, if you want a good teller, you want a good cashier, whatever, you need somebody who's worked in a place where people are expecting their food in 30 seconds. And they can count their money and they can like balance out a drawer, no problem. She was the fastest. She was the
Wow.
fastest and the most accurate. And she had come from
Hmm.
McDonald's. So those are my McDonald's memories, and I don't know why we're on
I don't know why
McDonald's
we're
anymore.
talking about McDonald's, but I did start it, but we we
It's a
we
very
went off
American
down
thing to do.
memory lane. We went down memory lane.
And
So
it is a
that's
very
food
American
related.
association. If you're
Yeah,
talking,
I think so. Yeah. Yep.
like it's a
Most
very
Americans would
Mhm.
relate. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so a couple other things. So it's food as a ritual of remembering. I think that's like funerals when you gather together and have food together. It's like there's a word,
Weddings,
commensality. Um,
christenings,
yes, yes, yes,
confirmations.
yes. So
I'm
those
just trying to
kinds
think
of
of what's
events like that. And then finally, he talked specifically about funeral times. So, and then I thought this was an interesting little piece of information for everybody. Um, in Iraq, in Mosul area, there is a palace that has been an archaeological site excavated since early 1900s. I think even Agatha Christie's husband had done some excavations there in the 40s. Now, it's a palace, Nimrod's Palace. I think that's what it
Oh
is.
yeah.
So,
Okay.
yeah. And there was they found in the 80s, maybe, or the 90s, they found a huge hoard of like gold crowns and whatever. It was like a huge find. I guess it was on Time magazine. I don't remember this. But it's quite a famous site. It's a big palace right on the Euphrates or the Tigris. Anyway, so a few months ago, this lady came to talk in DC. She's an archaeologist, and she excavated a certain portion of this palace a few years
Hmm.
ago, and she's written a book about it. And it was about women, and she looked specifically at the queens. There's evidence, obviously, of queens as well as the kings, but she was interested in focusing on the queens because they haven't really been studied as their own in their own right. And in this particular section, so what they used to do is when someone died, so when the old queen died, they put the dead underneath the floor in its own room, kind of like a
Okay.
basement, and laid out the body, and it was a room. There's like stuff around it, like amphorae or jars or whatever, and then close. Well, you still have to go down, so there's stairs. You would go down and visit the dead. So that the idea of the dead was a little bit different. They're still kind of like an active agent in a way, because you'd go and because you're all living in the same house, so you're sort of like you got
So
to
the
get
dead
along
are
with each
still
other. They're
in the
still
house.
kind of like yeah. They're first they're physically in the house, and secondly, you have to interact with them on some level. And I think she was saying like they're not ghosts or anything, but they're still
Energy is present, is the way I might describe it.
yeah, they're still an agent. There's agency there. And what they did was, so here's my room. So this is the floor of my room, and she's down here, the dead queen. So they have this little space in the floor. So they trickle down wine or whatever the beverage is, to feed to 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 for the dead queen. And I thought,
Well,
how
dead queen
interesting.
gets wine. It probably helps maybe mitigate smell too during the time
So
when
you
they're.
see, and you leave food, obviously. So it's food used connection,
Well, the Day of
and
the
you're
Dead
caring for them.
I mean, I'm not as familiar with Mexican traditions, but the
Oh,
Day
yes.
of the Dead is an honoring of the ancestors, and they do leave food on the altar in addition
Yes,
to
it's quite
beautiful.
common. I mean,
Yeah,
worldwide you leave food, don't
worldwide
you?
it's common. Yeah.
I mean, this thing is they're under your floor. So it's quite an
That is
intimate
very
living
different.
experience. It was a really interesting talk, actually. Yeah, yeah, really interesting.
That is very different. I'm also interested in what are the foods besides McDonald's, which we I think have exhausted the topic,
Oh
that
gosh,
have
let's hope so.
that have associated memory for you.
Here's a funny thing. So I grew up in Japan, obviously, and my mother's Japanese. And for decades, I would not go to Japanese restaurants. I would not go when I lived in the States. And everyone's like, "Oh, you want to go to a Japanese restaurant?" And I was like, "No, because I know what it tastes like, and I have a specific memory of it in my head. And to have to be subjected to some restaurant, wherever it is, America or whatever, Europe, where they don't know what they're doing, and to have to eat it, it will distress me." So I know it's obnoxious, but I would not eat. I would not go to a Japanese restaurant. I finally stopped being like that, uh, maybe 20 years ago or something. Because I was like, you know what? Doesn't matter. It's fine. Um, but yeah, I used to be quite narrow with my Japanese food because I think for me it was very much tied, maybe I guess my identity and my memories, and I had a specific idea of what it should taste like. And there was no room for other interpretations, like fusion. Remember when fusion food came out? That was weird. So,
Fusion was. But I actually loved fusion, like that type of blending of different foods. Um, I had something not exactly the same because it's not my culture, but my first experience, because again, my mom said we didn't have McDonald's money, so we did not have go to restaurant, like proper restaurant money, even more
oh,
so. Do you know what I mean? Like, so I really hadn't like I had home cooked meals, and my best friend when I was in
huh.
seventh and eighth grade, her mom was from Mexico, I believe northern
Hmm.
Mexico. I she's still alive. I could contact my best friend's mother. My best friend has passed, but her mother's still alive, and we're friends on Facebook. So I could contact her and ask her where she's from. But I have vague memories that she's from northern Mexico, and my first experience, really of Mexican food was things that she had cooked at home. And I loved it. I
Oh,
loved it. And it wasn't often that I was over there or that I had it, but what I had had was just like part of
oh,
it was my best friend, it was her family. It was really good. And so when I
yeah.
started first like having my own money and like going to Mexican restaurants, like because when people like you have a big group and everyone's like, where do you want to go? Mexican or Italian?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I was flabbergasted, appalled, and like, this isn't Mexican food.
Mm,
Like, there was like the beans were a mash, like there
yeah.
was cheese over everything. There was
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
sort of salsa that was not a salsa because it like was just, and I was just like, I can't. And I had something similar with Italian food, but not because of a personal memory necessarily. Though when we had lived in Germany, it's a lot closer to Italy. There had been
Yeah.
like Italian food. So again, that kind of memory association of what I think it's going to be and then it's not. I
Yes.
had such
Yeah.
a hard time in big groups. I would just be like, please, not Mexican, not Italian. Because an Italian in the US, not everywhere, but at least in the Pacific Northwest at the time, it felt like everything was smothered in cheese.
Oh, Americans love
Way
cheese.
too
Love it.
oily, like
Yeah.
way too oily. I mean, I like a good olive oil, but my pasta should not be swimming in it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so I would just be like, I can't. I'm like, can we do Asian? Because Pacific Northwest has really good Asian food. Like, you can find a very good Japanese restaurant in the Pacific Northwest.
Yep.
You can, though you're more likely to find Vietnamese, Korean, or even Chinese. But like, I would just be like, not those two. So something similar. And when I moved to New York, I had to kind of move beyond it because it was different.
Mm-hmm.
Though
Mm-hmm.
still, when you talk to people from like the Southwest of the United States, they're like, New York City does not have good Mexican food. But that's because most of those people did not venture into Queens. Best ethnic food, both major um, airports in New York City proper are in Queens. If you're
Yes.
talking about someone fresh off the boat, they're fresh off the plane nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
They're in Queens. So if you want good ethnic food at reasonable prices, take your butt to Queens. And you can actually find, I think some of the best food is Mexican, like street food in like Corona, Jackson, like on the coming up on Jackson Heights kind of thing, like really good. But not in Manhattan unless you want to go higher end and more expensive. And then I
Mm-hmm.
don't think it is exactly, it's still the food of the country. It's just, if not gourmet, close to gourmet. And I
Mm-hmm.
just think that's different. But I do have food associations, like really strong ones. I was texting Katie yesterday because I was trying to decide. There's actually a very good Puerto Rican restaurant that has been open. I don't know that they're at a year yet. Near, like
Oh, they're pretty
walking.
new.
Well, this is their third location. So they have two
Wow.
other locations in the Hartford I think the other two are in Hartford
Oh,
proper,
they're
just
very
in different
popular
parts
then.
of Hartford.
Yeah.
And I think this is the first one. We're in the Hartford County and we're in the Hartford metro area, but we're not in Hartford itself. And I'm talking about 2/10 of a mile walk. Like, this is not distant. This is for people who walk fast. It's 5 minutes, maybe one way. So I did end up going. And it just reminds me of some of the things like when I was 5, we were moving. We'd been in Japan, then Oklahoma, and we were moving to Germany. So we stopped off in Puerto Rico for 3 months. My mom and my sisters and I were there for 3 months. I think my dad got a month leave in between. Um, and my sisters were 2. Were they even 2? Yes, they were 2. They were 2. They were going to be 3. Oh, I don't know how old they were. They were little. And I remember my paternal grandmother, because my mom had made traditional, like, yuca. Like, she'd
Hmm.
boiled yuca with a bit of salt, and I think we had bacalao, um,
Hmm.
salted codfish that had been made really simple. And I think when you're a kid, simple flavors, like, I love spice now, but as a kid, I wasn't as much into it. So it was literally salt, olive oil. That's about it. And if you look at this plate, there's no color on this plate. You got like yuca and you've got, well, we might have had some batata, but even that was more the one that comes out whitish. Batata is not exactly, but it's similar to sweet potato. It has that same sweetness to it. Anyways,
Hmm.
my grandmother's like, those girls aren't going to eat that. And my mom's like, they eat this, but they go hungry. She didn't say it that way. She's like, she was just like, they'll eat it. And my my sisters who were really little then asked for more because she tried not to serve too much. And my grandmother was just shocked. But like, there's some of the flavors that for me, um, yesterday I'd completed 2.5 days of charged in a good way, mental,
Mm.
emotional activity. And being able to walk to a Puerto Rican restaurant and
Mm.
order things that remind me of my culture, of my family, of my grandparents, um, was a way to kind of ground myself. And I don't know if mitigate's the right word, but sometimes after you've had that mental, emotional like release, you're vibrating at this higher level.
Hmm.
There's this excess sort of energy kind of thing. And um,
Mm.
I swear when I started eating that bacalaito, I was transported,
Mm.
like having a bit of mofongo after added to that. And then the other thing was also drinking parcha. Um, I had it as a juice. And again, it was like it's a fruit from the island, has a sweet tartness to it,
Hmm.
and a pinkish color. And again, it was just part of that calming my entire system, transporting myself to a place that even when I'm landing, it just feels like coming home. Though I was neither born there, nor have I ever lived there for longer than
Mm.
6 months. But my parents brought the foods and the culture as much as they could with them everywhere we lived.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
And I too have looked for that. Like, even when we were junior abroad, like, I would get beans. And
Mm.
I didn't have sofrito, but I would like cut up the stuff for close to kind of thing. I might not be able to find culantro, but I'd find cilantro, and I would
Hmm.
make white rice and beans as a way to just, I needed something that my system was going to be like, I recognize this.
Yeah, it
Okay.
kind of makes your system go, you're safe, or you're safe, you're in a loving environment. It like triggers in a good way those emotions. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know about you, but I find that sometimes when I do that, my digestion is easier.
Mm,
and better.
probably more relaxed, I
Yeah.
imagine.
Yeah.
Mm.
Are there particular foods or memories
I
associated? I know
think
you said,
I think for me it's so a lot of it is my mother was not the best cook. Okay. So this is not my mother's food, but I used to spend all my summers on San Juan Island. Other than Japanese food, there's certain dishes that evoke that feeling for me. Like my grandmother would make like spaghetti pie, this deep dish thing. Oh my God, it was like my absolute favorite. And we'd make like
what's in spaghetti pie? I understand deep dish, but what is it,
it's
like a
just
variation on lasagna?
no, it's like spaghetti bolognese, but in a
Oh, okay.
casserole. Yes, yes, yes.
Okay.
Um, and she'd do like a whole side of salmon with like dill mayonnaise, like stuff like that is what I remember for like meals. And then also, so she was Norwegian background, not born in Norway, but her father was born in Norway and her whole family was Norwegian blood. And so she used to, I don't know where got this. She had lefse, which is a Norwegian bread, and it's kind of soft. You can buy it. And she'd be like smearing like butter and then sprinkling sugar on it and then roll it up and then we'd have it as a snack. And um, I saw it a month ago at Trader Joe's. They did an advertisement on their newsletter and they said, "We have lefse." And I'm like, I must get lefse. So I went to this Trader Joe's and I walked twice around the store looking for this bloody thing. I finally found it on like the bottom of the shelf. There is lefse, Norwegian lefse. Um, and my mom was like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, Grandma used to make lefse with butter and sugar. So I brought it home. I didn't do the butter and sugar. But I like would make sandwich out of it or whatever. But for me, like I don't even remember what it tasted like other than it was sugary butter. But just the idea of it and to have it there was cool, to me. I think I'm the only one in the entire house that was like, "Oh, it's lepsa." Yeah. My brother was too young and my mother was like, "I don't know what you're talking about."
It's fascinating that that type of memory, because I don't know why, but I'm also thinking about the potential genetic component of like our taste buds sort of thing.
Hmm.
Because I could see you maybe loving it and maybe your mom just being like, that does nothing for me, even outside of the memory component. Um,
Yeah, I
but
mean, taste-wise, I was nothing,
no, it's
it was only the memory propelling me forward. Yeah.
gotcha. But I'm thinking about like my younger nephew, his paternal grandmother was born and raised in Germany. He's never met her. She died before he was born. But there are so many things that he will often just love. And having lived in
Hmm.
Germany, that I just associate with potentially some German heritage. It may not be
Hmm.
the case, but when you mentioned butter, I am not a big butter person. Like, give me olive oil. I'm not saying I don't like it. I'm very happy to have some butter, but like buttery croissants aren't my thing. I'll eat them, but I'm very rarely craving one.
Hmm.
My nephew will crave one. You know, I will crave olive oil and I will crave olives.
Hmm.
Um, and so like he cooks. He's 14 and he likes to make his steak, I would say rare, maybe into
Hmm.
medium rare kind of thing, which is so different because I can literally remember my dad throwing up having eaten this, like something like that. And as such, I can do medium well. And that's about my rarest kind of thing. but he likes it that way. But he also uses butter, like when he makes it.
Mm.
He puts butter on the outside of it, which
Did
is
he
common.
watch some chef shows, TV
Could
cooking
be,
shows? They all do butter.
could totally be. And I mean,
Mm.
he loves it. He
Mm.
loves butter. And I'm like, if you gave me a choice of butter and olive oil, I'm more likely to pick the olive oil.
Mm.
I don't dislike the butter. I don't have an issue with it. I'm not, a lot of times butter doesn't have the lactose, but some of it does. You know, I don't have a reaction to that. I just prefer the olive oil to the butter. And so it makes me think about like the mix of places that people came from to the island that my family is from
Mm.
and the
Mm-hmm.
mix that makes up me. Because the other thing is, I noticed my mom and my sisters, they like things that are spiced well, but they have a much lower threshold as to what they consider too much. And I'm not just talking heat, I'm talking about they think it is overspiced.
Mm.
And I think I'm a bit more, I think my dad was like this, though he's not here to confirm it, but I tend to like more spice
Mm. Mm-hmm.
on what I'm eating.
Yeah.
Um, but one of the things that I looked up was, and I know it, but I looked it up just as a reminder, is like there are foods that are indigenous to the
Mm.
island that
Yes.
but I also have a number of foods that were brought to the island that I really, so bacalao, which I mentioned earlier, is something that because it was salted cod, a lot of the sailors and the ships that came, whether they were pirates or not, had salted cod on them. And
That's a
so,
very Iberian Peninsula food.
yeah, I think there's also, I think some of the Mediterranean, though, like I love sardines and
Uh-huh.
anchovies in olive
Mm-hmm.
oil. I also love them when they're like in the Mediterranean, it'll be a dish and it'll be fairly
Yep.
fresh. You know, like here in the States, I normally get it. It's canned more often than, I'm not saying you couldn't get it fresh, but it's more expensive. It's not as common.
Mm.
Um, but whenever I've been into any Mediterranean place, I'm like, I'm over the moon to get that type of like fish. Love it. But like plantains, which are a huge staple in Puerto Rico,
Mm.
whether it's
Yes.
having tostones, which means they've been fried until they're golden brown, then taken out, flattened. And I'll tell you what, the best thing to flatten them with, bit of wax paper and a can. Oof. But most people normally have flatteners. And then they're refried, a little bit of salt.
Mm-hmm.
They're chips, essentially. They're
Mm-hmm.
awesome. But that's what they use to make mofongo. It can also be in the masa of pasteles, which for us Puerto Ricans are not a sweet thing. Pasteles are, it's normally a masa, and I, I struggle with this word in English because it's when you mix something, but it's not like you're making a cake. It is kind of a type of batter, but it's savory, not sweet. And then they take it and they put it in a banana leaf or a plátano
Mm-hmm.
leaf, and they put seasoned meat, sometimes
Like
with
a
olives.
tamale.
It's similar, yes,
Mm.
but tamales, I think, normally have a corn base. There's no corn involved in
Oh.
Puerto Rican. They'll have yuca, they'll have cassava,
Oh, I
and they'll have
see.
plantains.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
I
And
just
they,
recently discovered tamales, so I'm a big fan of tamales.
that's awesome. Um, you might like, pasteles, though
Mm.
they are normally not seasoned in a hot way. Most Puerto Rican food doesn't have a
I don't like
spicy,
hot.
as in
Yeah,
hot
I don't like
spicy.
spicy.
Okay. Um, when I think of tamales, most of the ones that I've had a hot, spicy component. I'm not saying they all do. I'm just saying that
Oh, no,
the
I
ones that
don't.
I've
I
eaten.
don't. Yeah.
But I do like a little bit of hot sauce on my pastel. And we always have them. We have them in my family for Thanksgiving and Christmas. And I'm
Yes.
actually thinking
Hmm.
I might go make a couple because we have some left. And all of this
Oh,
talk is making me hungry. But yeah, it's I was looking up some of the foods that like are indigenous to the island versus
yeah.
like ones that were brought, and trying to think of like, okay, what are ones that, so I mentioned the yuca,
Hmm.
yautía, which I don't have a direct memory of. But they, and yame I do. These are all root type vegetables.
Okay.
Um, Starchy root vegetables, and they were part of the Taino diet way before anyone
Mm.
had
Hmm.
come from Europe or Africa really to
Yeah.
stay. Corn was indigenous, and beans, different kinds of beans. And then guava, love guava.
Oh, guava. That's so Hawaiian. That's
Oh,
my
I love guava. I
when I
wonder,
eat it or drink it, I think of Hawaii.
well, I wonder if the Puerto Ricans who were transported from Puerto Rico to Hawaii brought the guava.
Maybe.
Papaya,
That's also
pineapple,
very Hawaiian. Yeah.
and mamey. Mamey. I'm not
What's
familiar with
that?
mamey. I don't know. I have to look it up. I'm not familiar with it. And then seafood. Like, I'm a
Well,
huge
yeah.
seafood person. Well, I just finished talking about it, but those were like the things that were indigenous that people ate regularly, and they still do. But like for guava, at least for me, I've normally had it in a dessert. Like I love pastelitos de guayaba, which
Hmm.
are, these are sweet pastelitos, not pasteles. Um, but it's normally like Mercury is retrograde, and I am having a very tough time with words today. The, pastry dough, like a pastry dough,
Yes. Yes.
and they take a little piece of like kind of jellied guava,
Yes.
and they
That's
put
true.
it on there with another piece of pastry, fluffy pastry dough on it, and they cook that in the oven till it melts a bit, and then you put a little powdered sugar on it. Now, a lot of people like
Okay.
those as quesitos, where they take this white cheese. I don't like the quesitos, but
Oh,
my
okay.
brother-in-law loves them, and they have the guava with a little bit of cheese in the pastelito,
Oh,
and
yes.
and sometimes they just have the cheese, which are quesitos, but
Oh,
you
I
can keep
see.
the cheese where I'm concerned. Um, Vianda-based dishes, so the root vegetables that I mentioned,
Hmm.
mofongo, but the plantain, as I understand it, comes from Africa. And the whole idea of mofongo came from Africa because they used to mash the plantains there. And then one of my
Oh,
favorite is alcapurrias. I already talked pasteles, but alcapurrias, they have a similar masa, though
mm.
they often use achote, which
Oh,
is
yeah.
this in the oil.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
and I found that where pasteles most often, at least most often the ones I've had, they can have any kind of meat in them, but they most often have pork in them. While
Hmm.
acapurrias, I normally found had more ground beef in them, but they're similarly
Oh,
spiced. They will
okay.
sometimes have little like peppers kind of cut up, kind of, but they're small. Not, and that can be rare. But they take
Mm.
it and they put the meat inside, and then they make kind of a longer.
Hmm.
Sometimes they can be shorter, but they're more tubular
Hmm.
as opposed to like a round dumpling kind of thing.
Hmm.
And they'll fry
Hmm.
those. A lot of frying here. But I love it. I love it.
Now,
And
we did discuss food before. Do you remember in a few podcasts before? And I had broached the idea of you writing perhaps a cookbook of Puerto Rican food for the modern day person.
yes,
I encourage you.
yes, I am in a current space of struggling with the list of things I need to do. So that idea is on the list of things that sound very interesting to do. And
Now, here's a thought. Here's a thought. Exactly jumping off that. Sometimes I find if you do something, work a little bit, get your brain working on something that's fun, then naturally the energy translates over things you need to do.
This is true. Um,
I'm happy to help you with the cookbook, by the way.
I like to eat. I
Yes.
am not as much
Yes. This was
into
also
the
mentioned before. Yes.
actual cooking. So,
Yes.
um, I think I would enjoy the concept of doing it in terms of us researching the backgrounds of the various
Yes.
foods
Yep. Yep.
and writing about them in that way. So
Yep.
it's almost like a historical conversation on the
Okay.
foods.
Yes. I
I
think it's nice to
I
have
mean,
some recipes.
we can include the recipes, like uh, most of the recipes of the things that I'm talking about are fairly typical and families
Hmm.
might have their own take on them. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm thinking
Yep.
the
Yep.
last few times I've been in Puerto Rico, when I've had bacalaitos and alcapurrias, it's from a stand at the beach as
Hmm.
opposed to anybody making it at home.
Yeah.
So, and there's a whole place called Piñones that has a bunch of different um, places that sell this kind of food. But yeah, I like the idea of researching because I know bits and pieces. Like I'm telling you, plantains came over with the
Hmm.
Africans kind of
Hmm.
thing, but I don't know more in depth. I don't
So
know.
there are some resources on the internet. So this was something else that I did was I wanted to look at who's out there trying to track, indigenous foods, maybe foods that are
Yeah.
becoming endangered. I found three sites, a little bit different, but interesting. And so one is the ARK of taste. And this is a website run by the Slow Food Foundation for Biodiversity. When you go to their landing homepage, there's an international. You can click international, and then it takes you to this map of the world, and you just click on a country, and it's a catalog of dishes and ingredients that are becoming endangered.
Ooh.
And I clicked randomly on Mongolia. Yes,
Mm.
everybody, Mongolia. And there was one thing on Mongolia, and there are these milk curds, dried milk curds. And it was explaining how they're great food because you can either eat them dry. So, like as you're traveling, because they're nomadic, eat them, or you can mix it with water and it becomes a beverage. And it's a good source of vitamins. Anyway, so that was an interesting arc of taste. Another one, this is a crowdsourced site called Taste Atlas. This is a little bit different because it's not endangered foods, it's just kind of cultural foods from different countries. So, it could be like pesto from Genoa or whatever. You just click on a country and you see. So it would be interesting to see what they say with Puerto Rico. I'm sure everything you just mentioned I'm sure it would be there. It's a more kind of like a fun cultural
Oh, that
website.
sounds cool.
Yeah, that was quite interesting. And then the last one, it's a little bit more nichey, but I really like their website and it's a really nice website. So it's run by the Indigenous Food Systems Network Society. It's quite a mouthful. It's based in British Columbia, but it's focused on native foods. It's food, but it's also creating the spaces to work together for food security, and it's approaching food as part of their culture, but also as propelling into the future, building community beyond specific tribes, multi-tribal, and ensuring biodiversity and happy ecosystems. So they've got four projects going on. There's something called the Ground Up, and that's about building a toolkit for building these food spaces. There's a wild salmon caravan project they do. So again, salmon's quite important to
And
them,
it
and
tastes different. Wild salmon tastes different.
so it's about uh, highlighting the significance of salmon in their cultures and ensuring, you know, salmon sustainability. Another thing they do is Indigenous food and freedom schools. So it's working with kids and encouraging food projects with schools. And then the last thing is a We Are Well garden. So it's like I think it's a huge space somewhere in British Columbia. It's more than a garden. It's ensuring that ecosystem and the biodiversity and tying it into cultures and community. Anyway, it's kind of a little bit tangential, but I really like their website. It's very nicely done. They look like they're doing very interesting things. And I like the fact that it was also encompassing all all tribes, right? So it's in the area. They're working all together, not just one group.
I
So,
think that's awesome. I'm curious
it's
when you
very interesting.
going back to the first website of like
Yes,
foods that are
Arc of
becoming
Taste,
Arc of
Endangered.
Taste,
Yes.
endangered. Did I was I'm wondering, did you look at all at like Norway, Sweden, or Japan, like your where your
No, I just
ancestors are
clicked on Mongolia and then I was
just on
like,
Mongolia?
looks
It
cool.
that one also made me think of the fact that I remember there was a thing a while ago where quinoa was becoming because
Hmm.
it had protein in it, it was becoming like the power
Yes,
grain. And
yes.
the people in the areas that it was native to were having a hard time getting a hold of or being able to afford their most basic grain because it was being grown and sold elsewhere for so much more money.
Same thing is happening with matcha, everybody.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
matcha is like, it has been exploding. It's even at like Starbucks. It's everywhere. There are actual matcha specific shops, baked goods, drinks, whatever. So what's happening, because my mother teaches tea ceremony, which is a consumer of matcha. So there's a supply problem issue. Then you say, well, who else is growing it? Why don't you go to China? Yeah. Okay, so China does have matcha farms, but the quality at the moment is not fantastic. I guess it may depend on who you're talking to, but to be honest, like Starbucks, do they need a high quality matcha? I don't think so. It's not like it's a ceremonial use. So there's a discussion about this China produced matcha is not quite cutting it, but might be good for mass production. But it's a very, when you said about the quinoa, it's very similar situation for matcha.
yeah. It's interesting and troubling. I know that things change, and that, tastes change and stuff, but
Yeah.
the concept of something that has been there sort of
Hmm.
disappearing or moving away kind of thing, like not being
And
available to those who originally
yeah, and
used.
that's what I found so interesting because when we started the discussion, like food, like you said, it's always changing, isn't it? Food is a dynamic thing. And so with tastes changing or like McDonald's coming in, you might not be so keen on your, you know, heritage foods or whatever, but there's people out there trying to maintain that link. They see it as a link back, you know.
Yeah,
And then there's situations where food and memory are being created as we speak and being invented, and that's also an exciting thing. So, I don't know. It's what an interesting field
it
topic.
is. And I think that is a beautiful point for us to wrap on the concept that it is
Mm,
constantly changing. There are new
mm,
memories being created, and that though there are ones that exist, it doesn't mean that there can't be new ones that develop.
mm,
Um,
exactly.
and as we all know, food continues to be something that brings many of us together and holds us together. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We hope you will comment. Let us know what you think. Let us know what your biggest memory related to food is. And we hope you're having a wonderful, wonderful week. Thank you.
Thank you.